While other people awaken superpowers and become friends with loyal dogs and singing birds, I ended up with what might be the smelliest superpower in the entire solar system, the ability to communicate with rats, flies, and cockroaches, the ultimate sewer intelligence network. Ironically, it's precisely because humans ignore and look down on these tiny creatures hiding in drains and dark corners that I've been able to stay one step ahead of the police whenever my little rat informants accidentally witness a crime scene. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to QuickBuzzBig. Your support is the biggest motivation for us to keep bringing you new videos every single day. Thanks for watching. Please continue listening to the story. At this point, this isn't solving a case anymore, it's black magic. Seeing Lam Fong frozen like a wax statue, I waved my hand in front of his face and called his soul back. Hello? Officer Lam, can you hear me? Lam Fong snapped back to reality, swallowed hard, and quickly rummaged through the documents on the table for cross-checking. With trembling hands, he pulled out 3 thin case files, his voice stuttering in shock. Yes, there are 3 people with the surname Thoy. See, could you take a look? Here are their detailed profiles. I calmly took the 3 files from him. Honestly, I felt a little disappointed inside. I had assumed there would only be one person named Thoy, find him, and I could immediately pinpoint the cold-blooded murderer. I didn't expect there to be 3. This really makes things difficult for a sewer-level agent. I quickly skimmed through the documents. The first person, Thoy Kian Long, 47 years old, General Director of Kobang Construction Company. Clean record, no criminal history. The second person, Thoy Dien Vai, 56 years old, General Director of Hoa Kien Group. Also a successful businessman with no blemishes on his legal record. The third person, Thoy Traik Vu, 30 years old, Director of the Bidding Department of Hoa Kien Group. The only stain on his record was a prior drunk driving incident. But there was one extremely important detail: Thoy Dien Vai, 56, and Thoy Traik Vu, 30, are biological father and son. Seeing me silently staring at the documents, Lam Fong stepped closer and asked in a low voice, as if afraid of disturbing Consultant Ha, the Mystic Master. Take a close look at their photos. Can you sense anything from their expressions? Which one of them is the real killer among the 3? I sighed and closed the files. I can't tell from photos. If we want to know for sure, I need to meet them in person. In my mind, I was already calculating, meet them in person, then send my little cockroach agents to monitor them 24/7 and dig up information. That's my real method of solving cases. I'm not some fortune teller who reads photos. Hearing this, Lam Fong frowned and stroked his chin in analysis. Ms. Ha, you probably don't know this, but these real estate tycoons aren't easy to meet. And right now, we don't even have a single piece of solid evidence. They definitely won't cooperate with an investigation. Just look at Don Vaijia's arrogant attitude, you can tell how difficult these rich people are. As he spoke, Lam Fong muttered, thinking about how to seek instructions from Captain Du. But before he could finish, a strange voice interrupted our conversation. Ms. Hamak, Captain Du is looking for you urgently. He's waiting for you in his office. I turned to look at the speaker, a young police officer. I asked cautiously. Do you know what Captain Du wants to see me about? The young officer shook his head hesitantly. I'm not sure, but judging by Captain Du's expression, it doesn't seem like good news. Looking at the concerned, almost sympathetic eyes of the young officer, a bad feeling suddenly rose in my heart. My female intuition told me clearly, a storm was coming. And indeed, the moment I stepped into the office, the first sentence Captain Du Cam Kai threw at me almost made my soul leave my body. Don Vaijia just called me directly. He complained that, as a member of the police, you not only openly keep the 4 evil insects as pets, but also carry them with you and release them all over his villa like you're on a stroll. My heart, which had been hanging in midair, finally dropped with a thud. Shattered. The headache surged back, leaving me dizzy. I knew it. That sharp-tongued young rich guy was never going to let this chance to stab from behind slip away. Even though I had used the excuse of raising pets to cover things up, he still refused to believe it. The moment I left, he immediately turned around and snitched to my superior. Seeing me remain silent, with nowhere to hide my face, team leader Du Kam Kai's sharp gaze drifted down to the cloth bag hanging at my waist. He raised an eyebrow and asked in a commanding tone. "That bag, don't tell me your jar of cockroaches is still in there?" Since the situation had already been exposed, I had no choice but to brace myself and nod in admission. Yes, I really am raising some cockroaches. But I swear to heaven and earth, I never intended to release them to cause trouble at other people's homes. In my heart, I screamed in grievance, my cockroaches are elite mercenaries, special intelligence assets for the police. Hearing my weak explanation, Du Kam Kai let out a half-laugh, more like he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He rubbed his forehead and shook his head helplessly. "Miss Ha, it's normal for young people to have strange pets. Some people raise dogs, spiders, lizards, I wouldn't say anything. But you, what exactly are you raising cockroaches for? What are you expecting from a species born from the sewers?" The moment he finished speaking, faint, dissatisfied rustling sounds immediately came from inside my cloth bag. The little cockroaches in the jar clearly heard his insult. They erupted in outrage. "Why are we useless? We're risking our lives undercover to help Sister Ha catch criminals, you blind cop." Afraid my insect pets would get angry and cause trouble, I quickly patted the side of my bag and whispered to calm their frustration. Seeing Du Kam Kai silently staring at me, I forced a bitter smile and broke the awkward silence. "Team leader Du, don't tell me you urgently called me here just to complain about my cockroach raising habits? Police regulations don't have any clause banning citizens from loving animals, even if they have a few extra legs." Hearing this, Du Kam Kai was half tempted to scold me and half amused. Deep down, he also knew, the police system indeed had no such ridiculous rule banning cockroaches. Moreover, I was only an external consultant, not a formal member of the city's public security bureau, so disciplinary action wasn't even his place. In the end, Du Kam Kai let out a long breath and changed his tone to something more serious. "I didn't call you here to scold you. I'll just say one thing, keep your pets under control. Don't let them wander into other people's homes again." I nodded. "Yes, I'll try." But my attitude was clearly half-hearted. Seeing my stubborn demeanor, a trace of suspicion rose in Du Kam Kai's mind. The subordinates in his criminal investigation team were usually so terrified of him that they barely dared to breathe. Yet this young woman didn't seem to show even the slightest fear. However, time was running out, and Du Kam Kai had no energy to dwell on such trivial matters. He shifted directly to the progress of the case. "Lam Fang already reported to me. Your intuition is that the killer is involved in real estate and has the surname Thoi?" I nodded firmly. Du Kam Kai frowned deeply. "Do you have any concrete evidence?" I shook my head helplessly. I couldn't reveal the existence of my underground cockroach intelligence network, so I stayed silent. Du Kam Kai sighed heavily and pressed his temples. "This is going to be difficult. I'll try to contact higher-ups and see if we can arrange an in-person meeting with those three." I obediently nodded, though even Du Kam Kai admitted the chances were slim. He told me to keep checking old crime scenes to see if I could pick up any more clues. The surveillance footage from the Wangshan Road area had already hit a dead end, all traces had been erased by the rain that night. And as expected, everything soon fell into stagnation. All three suspects with the surname Thoi refused every casual interview request from the police. Behind them, influential figures even directly called Director Tang at headquarters, subtly pressuring the police not to harass businessmen. As a result, even covert surveillance was no longer possible. The night of April 30th. Outside, the entire city was flooded with people celebrating and welcoming the International Labor Day holiday. Yet inside the Criminal Investigation Office, a heavy, suffocating cloud of gloom hung over everything. Everyone kept their heads down, buried in the files in their hands, not a single person speaking. The silence was so heavy that even the sound of labored breathing could be clearly heard. Occasionally, someone would look up toward the pitch-black window, their eyes filled with unease. Dawn was approaching, yet not a single officer left their post to rest. They were waiting for something bad to happen. At that moment, a low, tense voice broke the silence. "It's raining." I snapped my head up. Through the glass window, the first raindrops began to fall, pattering against the surface. From scattered droplets, the rain quickly thickened into a dense net, violently crashing against the glass. The downpour grew heavier and heavier, whitening a corner of the sky. The calendar had just turned to May 1st, the first rain of this nightmare month had arrived. Somewhere in the outskirts of the city, residents were rushing in all directions to find shelter from the rain. Doi Jia had just finished a gathering with friends and was caught by the sudden downpour, but she wasn't panicked. Calmly, she took a small umbrella from her bag. In her heart, she felt a bit pleased with herself for always checking weather forecasts and being prepared. However, the heavy rain caused a surge in taxi demand. Doi Jia stood shivering at the bus stop for more than 10 minutes, yet no driver accepted her ride request. With a sigh, she decided to open her umbrella and walk home instead. Her apartment wasn't too far anyway, about a 40 to 50-minute walk. But the deeper she went into the suburban roads, the more unsettling it became. The bustling shops along the main road had already been left behind. The outskirts mainly consisted of small convenience stores serving nearby residents, and they all shut early at night. The entire stretch of road was empty, no people, only the sound of rain, eerie and endless. Suddenly, Doi Jia felt a bone-chilling cold run down her spine. Even though it was already May, tonight's rain carried a piercing cold, like early spring drizzle. She couldn't help but shiver and pulled her coat tighter. Instinctively, she glanced behind her. Through the blurred curtain of rain, she froze when she noticed a black car slowly rolling behind her, following just a few meters away. Her heart skipped a beat, her nerves instantly tightening like a drawn string. When did this car appear? Why was it crawling so slowly on such an empty road? Was someone inside watching her? As if sensing her alertness and her slightly panicked steps, the car suddenly accelerated, surged forward a few meters, and then slammed on the brakes with a sharp screech, stopping right at the curb and blocking her path. Panic surged through Doi Jia. Instinctively, she tried to step back and run, but at that exact moment, the car window rolled down. A deep, warm male voice, rich with magnetism, cut through the sound of pouring rain. "Hello." Doi Jia froze. She swallowed hard and leaned slightly forward, staring into the car. Her hand gripped the umbrella tightly in a defensive posture. Under the streetlight filtering through the rain, the man in the driver's seat came into view. He was young, with sharp, masculine features, and extremely handsome. A gentle, friendly smile hung on his lips, effortlessly dissolving the darkness of the rainy night. Seeing her still staring at him with full caution, he showed no irritation at all. Instead, he looked understanding. His voice carried a hint of apology. "I'm sorry. I think my actions earlier scared you, right? That's really unfortunate. I was supposed to meet a friend around here, but I can't find the place he mentioned. My phone also lost signal, so I can't call him. I saw you passing by, so I just wanted to pull over and ask for directions." His good looks and polite demeanor eased some of Doi Jiayen's suspicion. She frowned slightly. "You're driving but not using a navigation app?" The man gave a bitter smile, looking helpless. "The place might be too deep in the outskirts. The navigation system in my car isn't updated. May I ask if you know where the Huafeng grocery store is?" Hearing that, Doi Jiayen relaxed completely and trusted him. She lived in this area and knew it well, sometimes even delivery drivers had to call multiple times to find the address. She pointed ahead enthusiastically. "Oh, Huafeng grocery store? I know it. Just go straight to the intersection ahead, turn left, then drive about 200 meters and you'll see the glowing sign." "I see," the man hesitated, his expression suddenly turning troubled. He looked at her with a pleading gaze. "It's very dark around here, and there are many turns. Could you get in the car and guide me there for a bit? Seeing Doi Jia hesitate, he smiled slightly and added a final, fatal lure. Rain is heavy like this, walking must be tiring for you. Once I find my friend, I'll personally drive you home as a thank you for helping me. The rain began to patter heavily against the umbrella. Doi Jia shivered slightly, her gaze unconsciously dropping to the high heels on her feet. She hadn't walked long in the rain, but her heels were already starting to redden and ache. The man in the car maintained his calm smile, his tone becoming even more sincere and harmless. Don't worry, I'm not a bad person. Here, you can check my business card. He handed a gilded, high-end business card through the window. Doi Jia took it and squinted under the streetlight to read it. The defensive wall in her mind immediately dropped halfway. It turned out he was the bidding department director of a large construction group. Combined with his handsome face, gentle smile, and the luxury car he was driving, she looked up and met his expectant yet slightly helpless gaze. In that instant, Doi Jia was completely convinced. All right. She answered softly and closed her umbrella before stepping forward. In her heart, she simply thought it was a small act of kindness, and she could also avoid the freezing cold of the early rain. She opened the passenger door and got in. She didn't know that the moment the car door closed was the moment the door to hell opened. Underscore 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 5:37 a.m., May 1st. My shallow sleep was ripped apart by a sharp, piercing ringtone. The hours between 3 and 5 a.m. were when humans were in their deepest sleep, hardest to wake. But after days of strained nerves, I shot up like a spring the moment the first ring sounded and grabbed the phone. On the other end, Deputy Director Pham Hui spoke in a deep, heavy voice. Hamok, a female body has just been discovered in the western suburbs, buried in a flower bed. The lower half of the victim was found in a nearby trash bin, placed upright. My heart dropped straight into my stomach. The dust had settled, the nightmare had become reality. The rainy night killer had struck again, claiming the seventh victim. I sprang up and threw off the blanket. I'm coming to the scene right now. Clean yourself up first. I've already sent Lam Fong to pick you up and take you directly to the hotel, Pham Hui said quickly before hanging up. I rushed into the bathroom and washed up at lightning speed. Luckily, out of anxiety the night before, I had already prepared my clothes in advance before going to bed. I ran my fingers through my messy hair instead of using a comb, grabbed my cloth bag containing my sewer intelligence unit, and sprinted downstairs. The total time from receiving the call to arriving at the lobby was less than 3 minutes. When the car braked in front of the entrance, Lam Fong looked at me in shock as I rushed out. You teleported here? Didn't you sleep all night? I slept for a bit. Without slowing down, I opened the passenger door and got in. My only thought was, I had to reach the scene as fast as possible. Evidence left in the rain would vanish quickly, and I needed my special witnesses to help me. Seeing my tense urgency and the almost suffocating pressure I was giving off, Lam Fong didn't dare ask further. He slammed the accelerator, and the police car tore through the rain. The rain had been falling all night. Although it was no longer as heavy as earlier, it was still enough to soak everything. I didn't bother with an umbrella and ran through it, following Lam Fong toward the cordoned-off area. As I walked, I quickly wiped the rainwater off my clothes with tissues. Everyone's already here? I asked. Lam Fong nodded, his expression tense. Captain Du Cam Kai and the forensic team arrived early. Even Director Tang is on the way. They left immediately after receiving the report. Only we were far away, so we're the last to arrive. We fell silent again. The atmosphere inside the car had already been suffocating. Outside, it felt even heavier, pressing down on the chest like a physical weight. Crossing the police barricade, what greeted me was the crime scene, a vast stretch of land, overgrown with wild grass growing in chaotic, irregular patterns. And right in the middle of that desolate stretch of land lay the body of a woman. She lay there, silent and motionless. The rain had washed away most of her makeup, leaving her skin pale and a sickly bluish white that was almost painful to look at. But compared to the horrifying dismembered photos in the old case files, the woman before my eyes now looked strangely alive. She was wearing a beautiful dress, her face carefully made up. Lying in the cold rain, she didn't look like a corpse at all, but rather like a sleeping princess in a wasteland, so beautiful it was haunting, like a flower that had just bloomed only to be cruelly snapped off. Hamak! Hamak! Captain Dukamkaya's sharp, low voice rang in my ear, pulling my mind back from the edge of death and into reality. I flinched and turned to him blankly. Captain Dukamkai, were you calling me? What is it? He stared at my pale face, his eyes filled with concern. Are you all right? Do you want to sit in the car for a bit and rest? Have some warm water? In Dukamkaya's mind at that moment, this Hamak was still just a newly recruited external consultant. She had probably never witnessed such a brutal, syrup-soaked crime scene in real life. From my sharp reasoning ability over the past few days, striking true every time, he had unconsciously placed me among seasoned veteran officers. He had forgotten I was still just a young woman. I took a deep breath, forcing my racing heartbeat to calm down, and shook my head vigorously. I'm fine. The heavy rain has washed away most of the syrup smell, so my stomach can still handle it. Then I shifted my focus back to the investigation. Has the victim been identified? Dukamkai nodded, his expression darkening. We're still confirming it, but based on the method of dismemberment and disposal, it's almost 100% certain this is that perpetrator's work. That serial monster has struck again. Not 6 victims, but the 7th. The 7th victim. Those 4 words felt like an invisible verdict, like a nightmare casting a dark shadow over the entire investigation team. The nightmare known as the Rain Night Killer was devouring everyone's sanity. I looked around quickly. As expected, this was a remote suburban area with not a single surveillance camera pointing toward the open field. I asked, Captain Dukamkai, has the technical team surveyed the area yet? Did they find any tire marks? At the mention of this lead, his tightly furrowed brows finally eased slightly. He replied, his voice carrying a trace of hope. The heavy rain has washed away most surface traces, but from the crushed and flattened patches of wild grass pressed into the mud, we can confirm a vehicle definitely drove into this field. I've already sent people to extract all surveillance footage from intersections and main roads leading into this area. He clenched his fist, determination burning in his eyes. Last time, because too much time had passed, all surveillance data had been overwritten, and they could only watch helplessly as the culprit escaped. But this time was different. If they went all out and cross-checked every traffic camera within a 10-kilometer radius throughout the night, they would definitely catch that vehicle. I nodded slightly in agreement. I'll walk around the area and take another look. To be honest, I knew my own limits. My crime-solving knowledge was just a patchwork of theories from detective dramas. How could I possibly compare with the sharp eyes of forensic and technical experts? My only real advantage now was to quickly find my special witnesses before the rain scared them all away. Captain Dukamkai seemed to understand. He assumed I was going off to find a quiet corner to use my sensation of fading breath ability again, and immediately nodded. All right, just don't step into the cordoned-off area and contaminate the scene. I walked away into the light rain. Behind me, Captain Dukamkai stood silently, watching my figure disappear into the distance. After a moment, he turned to ask Lam Fong, who was recording notes beside him. Lam Fong, last time you reported to me that you personally saw Hamak feeding mice, right? Lam Fong, who was busy examining the crime scene, was suddenly hit with a completely unrelated question from his superior and flinched in surprise. It took him a few seconds to process before he nodded awkwardly. Yes, sir. That day, in broad daylight, she even specially bought high-quality beef, minced it up, and fed it to a few sewer rats. How many? Du Kai narrowed his eyes. Lam Fong tried hard to recall. I think, 3 of them. Du Kai said nothing more. He simply folded his arms and fell into deep thought, his gaze distant. First, feeding rats with beef. Then keeping a swarm of cockroaches as pets and carrying them around everywhere. And on top of that, she even possessed the ability to sense the aura of death at crime scenes. Just what other earth-shattering secrets was this consultant Hamok hiding? While Du Kai was questioning his entire worldview, I had already circled a wide perimeter around the open field. Looking at the desolate surroundings, my heart sank halfway. This entire suburban area only had a few dozen rundown single-story houses scattered far apart from the body disposal site. Combined with the continuous rain since last night, the ground was muddy and showed almost no signs of life activity, no rats, no cockroaches, not even flies or mosquitoes. I found a hidden corner next to a wall and, after confirming no one was watching, I slowly crouched down. I reached into my inner pocket and carefully pulled out 3 small gray mice curled up and sleeping. Wake up, you guys. We've got an emergency. I lowered my voice and ordered them. Split up and search the area. See if there are any other rats living nearby. If there are, ask them whether they saw anyone dump a body here last night, or whether they noticed any suspicious vehicle stopping nearby. If you find any witnesses, bring them to me immediately. After speaking, I quickly tore open a butter cookie and broke it into 3 pieces, feeding each mouse a share as fuel. Go do your mission. Be careful. The 3 gray mice nodded rapidly, grabbed their food, and scattered in 3 different directions, quickly disappearing into the wet grass. After finishing the ground reconnaissance, I tapped the cloth bag at my waist. Inside the plastic bottle, the cockroaches had long since woken up and were chattering noisily. Lam Fong shouted impatiently from inside. Sister Ha! Sister Ha, we want to go find clues too. Let us out. The other cockroaches immediately echoed. Yeah, let us out. We're better at crawling through tight spaces than those fat mice. The scratching sound of their legs against the plastic bottle made my scalp itch. I quickly suppressed them. Quiet, you guys. You're not allowed out. It's dangerous. It's raining, and you'll die if you go out. Besides, there aren't even any cockroach communities here for you to interrogate. Lam Fong immediately retorted confidently. There are. Wherever there's trash, there are cockroaches like us. Just take us somewhere that smells rotten, and we can definitely call our kind over. I froze for a moment. A spark suddenly flashed in my mind. Trash. Trash bins. That's right. Wasn't the lower half of the victim's body brutally thrown into a trash bin not far from here by the killer? I nodded decisively and patted the plastic bottle. All right, I'll take you to that trash bin. That area is currently heavily sealed off for police investigation. You absolutely must stay inside the bottle. Only use your brainwave signal to call your kind out. Got it? From inside the plastic bottle, a chorus immediately responded with full enthusiasm. Understood. Mission guaranteed. Team Little Strong, move out. As I approached the trash bin area, the officers busy with forensic work all looked up at me with somewhat strange expressions. But seeing that I was part of the investigation team and not actually stepping inside the cordoned-off zone, they quickly suppressed their curiosity and returned to their work. The problem was, under so many eyes locked onto the scene, how was I supposed to secretly approach the trash bin and release my cockroach scouts? Cornered, I shamelessly turned to Du Kai and made an absurd request. Captain Du Kai, could you ask everyone to step back a little? I hesitated for a second, then added. I want to stand alone next to that trash bin. If an ordinary person said something like this, they would definitely get yelled at. But because I had already been labeled a psychic consultant in their eyes, Du Kai only frowned slightly before quickly nodding in approval. However, he still warned me seriously. Fine. You can approach it, but absolutely do not touch anything, especially the body. The forensic team hasn't finished collecting evidence yet. I flinched internally. I was already screaming in my mind. Even if you gave me gold, I still wouldn't touch something like that. Outwardly, I maintained a firm expression and nodded confidently. Don't worry. I'll only stand there. I won't touch anything. Kai gestured with his chin. The forensic and technical teams immediately understood and stepped aside, creating an open space around the trash bin. But even though they stepped back, dozens of curious eyes still stayed glued to me. And the sharp, blade-like gaze of Kai was still locked firmly on my every movement. Standing in the pouring rain, one hand holding an umbrella, the other hidden tightly in my pocket containing the plastic bottle, I could feel my face burning. With so many eyes watching me, how was I supposed to act? Clenching my teeth, squeezing my eyes shut, I took a gamble and shouted into the rain. Everyone stop looking at me. Staring at me like this is distracting me, I can't sense the traces here. The moment my shout ended, the entire scene fell into a deathly silence. Even the sound of the rain seemed to pause for a beat. Oh my God. I was so embarrassed I could feel my toes curling. I wished I could dig a hole with my bare hands and bury myself in it. It felt like dozens of gazes had turned into needles, pricking all over my body. Luckily, the rain was heavy and everyone was standing at a distance. No one could clearly see that my face was already as red as a ripe tomato. The silence lingered for a long moment. Finally, someone coughed. Then, one by one, everyone around slowly turned their heads away, as if they had silently reached some unspoken agreement. Some lowered their heads to review their notes again. The people around lowered their heads again and returned to their work, pretending to study tire tracks on the ground. Another person even turned completely around, staring at the white curtain of rain in the distance as if they had just discovered the secret of the universe. Even Captain Kai lightly rubbed his forehead and reluctantly said, "All right, everyone get back to your work. No one is to disturb Ha." Hearing that, I cautiously opened one eye to check. Sure enough, no one was staring at me anymore. I immediately let out a huge sigh of relief, as if I had been pardoned. The hand hidden inside my jacket moved like lightning, twisting the bottle cap slightly. A small gap was opened, just enough. From inside, Lang 107 immediately lowered its voice, so excited it almost squealed. "Sis Ha, situation is secure. Let us connect to the local intelligence network." I gritted my teeth and whispered. "Keep your voice down. Get to work. Don't get exposed." Inside the plastic bottle, a series of faint, excited rustling sounds erupted. The Little Strong Squad officially began their first-ever crime scene investigation mission in the history of cockroaches. From the mouth of the bottle, the roaches started pushing and scrambling. Lang 107 used its sharp little legs to climb out while shouting at the chaotic group below. "Move aside, all of you rookies. Let the captain through. Lang 665, pull your leg back. You're blocking the way." With the professionalism of a mercenary leader, Lang 107 crawled out with great pride. It dropped down onto the edge of the foul-smelling trash bin and turned back, hissing confidently. "Sis Ha, don't worry. I'll go down to the bottom and drag out the local informants here to meet you." I smiled and nodded lightly. "Okay. Be careful." Like a shadow, Lang 107 slipped through a narrow gap in the metal shell and disappeared deep into the trash bin. Luckily, this trash bin had a fairly large plastic lid. Otherwise, after a whole night of heavy rain, the wastewater inside would have overflowed and ruined the entire crime scene. I glanced through the gap of the bin. The lower half of the victim's body didn't seem to be fully stuffed deep inside. Under the dim light, I could still see part of a pale calf and a pair of red high heels made of glossy leather. The shoes were beautiful, exquisitely designed, perfectly matching the vibrant dress worn by the upper half of the victim. Standing so close, I could clearly see cold raindrops gathering on the corpse's pale skin, slowly merging and sliding down in broken trails, like the tears of a wronged soul. A chilling, bittersweet feeling surged in my chest. I quickly looked away, unable to keep watching. Soon after, dense rustling sounds came from inside the gap of the trash bin. Lang 107 had returned. And it wasn't alone. Behind it followed a swarm of black, writhing cockroaches. "Sis ha!" Lang 107 hissed in report. "This whole family has taken up residence inside this trash bin. They said this place is usually very remote, barely anyone throws trash here. They could go an entire month before the garbage collectors bothered to come. Because of that, they had been living peacefully here, never once discovered or sprayed with insecticide." Hearing that, I quickly reached into my pocket and took out some prepared gummies and biscuit crumbs, carefully placing them at the edge of the trash bin near the ground. The local wild cockroaches in this suburban area had probably spent their entire lives only gnawing on rotten garbage. Suddenly, they were hit with the rich, creamy scent of butter and milk, and each one of them went almost insane. They rushed forward in a rustling swarm, clinging tightly around the food, devouring it frantically. Taking advantage of the moment while the local street gang was busy eating, Lang 107 stood nearby with an air of authority, acting like a seasoned big brother. "Little brothers, calm down. Don't fight over it. This is just the appetizer. If you honestly answer Sister Ha's questions, I guarantee there will be far more delicious delicacies than this, 10,000 times better." It was truly unbelievable how authoritative this mercenary cockroach was. The local cockroaches immediately stopped chewing and obediently gathered to listen. A tiny cockroach raised its antennae timidly and asked, "Sister Ha, go ahead and ask. We'll tell you everything we know." Another, slightly larger cockroach squeezed in. "Sister Ha, are you a good person? You won't spray us with that weird smelly liquid and make us disappear, right?" Yet another chimed in excitedly. "Sister Ha, do you have anything even tastier? Something black, sticky, super sweet, do you have that, sister?" Hearing the chaotic mix of voices, some begging for food, some flattering them, the emotions in my heart were extremely complicated. I forced out a friendly smile and responded through mental signal. "As long as you answer truthfully, you can eat whatever you want. Now be quiet, one at a time." The cockroaches immediately fell silent, obediently lining up like children waiting for candy. I took a deep breath and went straight to the core question. "During the early hours of this morning, while it was raining, did you see anyone bring that corpse here and dump it? What did that person look like? Old or young? How tall compared to me?" In my mind, I quickly assessed that cockroaches living in this garbage dump suburban area probably had no concept of exact age or height measurements. The best way was to use my own body as a reference point. One cockroach immediately raised a leg to report. "Yes, sister. We saw it clearly. In the middle of the night, while we were having our feast, that person suddenly showed up and shoved that huge lump of flesh in here. He almost crushed brother Xiaochang of mine." Another older cockroach added. "Sister Ha, that guy was big, about 1.5 heads taller than you. He looked younger than you, but the killing intent he gave off was extremely terrifying. Very dangerous. You must be careful, or he might knock you out." I continued pressing for details about the suspect's facial features. The rain was still pouring heavily. With one hand I held my umbrella, wedging it between my shoulder and neck, with the other, I struggled to pull out my small notebook and pencil from my pocket. While listening to the chaotic, fragmented descriptions from the cockroach swarm, my pen moved quickly across the wet page, sketching the first rough lines. The process was extremely difficult, but gradually features such as deep-set eyes, a high-nose bridge, and a sharp jawline began to emerge. When the sketch was completed, I held it up in front of the cockroaches. They all hissed excitedly. "That's him. That's exactly him. It's identical. Sister Ha, you're amazing." One cockroach said in admiration. "Being human must be great. You can do everything. It must be 100,000 times better than being a mouse or a cockroach like us. Yeah. I wish I could be human in my next life too." Then I'd eat the whole world. Hearing the innocent praise from the insects, my eyes unconsciously fell back to the sketch in my hand, and my heart sank. The man in the drawing had an extremely handsome and masculine face, along with a tall, well-built physique. This image completely contradicted the earlier psychological profiles proposed by the forensic experts, who expected a disfigured, socially withdrawn killer. Not only that, but judging from the subtle hints about the surname Foy from director Don Gia, this person's social status was clearly not low. A young, handsome, wealthy man with high status. In other words, someone who has money when he wants money, and women when he wants women. So then, what was the reason? What kind of sick, deranged motive could have driven him to strike, to erase 7 lives in such brutal and merciless fashion? A violent flame of rage erupted in my eyes. I almost wanted to rush straight to Du Cam Kai, slap this sketch into his face, and shout. Go! Go arrest that psychopathic killer right now. But my reason managed to yank me back in time. No. This drawing only had reference value, it was for guidance only, and it was far from sufficient legal evidence to convict someone. If I acted impulsively, I might startle the snake in the grass, allowing that cunning old fox to sense danger and wipe out all remaining traces. Then I suddenly remembered what the old rat had said at the scene of the first case. Its grandfather had personally witnessed the killer lingering behind to take photos of the victim's body. It was very possible that this perverted killer had a habit of collecting trophies or storing those horrifying images as souvenirs. If the police could find that kind of sick treasure, then he would have nowhere left to deny it and would be forced to face the full punishment of the law. Suppressing my anger, I turned back to the swarm of cockroaches and asked one final question. After dumping the body, did he say anything? Which direction did he leave in? The cockroaches all shook their heads violently. We were too scared, so we hid deep at the bottom of the trash bin. We didn't dare peek out to see which direction he went. He didn't say a single word. Another cockroach added. After throwing the body in, he stood there frozen, staring for a long time before finally turning and walking away, silent like a ghost. Seeing that all useful information had been extracted, I didn't linger any longer. I softly ordered the local cockroach swarm. The mission is complete. Later, the police will take this entire trash bin back to the station for forensic testing. If you stubbornly stay here, you'll definitely get sprayed with chemicals and be wiped out. Quick, all of you get into this bottle. I'll take you somewhere safer and make sure you're well fed. No one knew whether it was the irresistible temptation of food, or whether these rural cockroaches were simply too innocent in their thinking, but they didn't hesitate for even a second. One by one, they eagerly crawled into the plastic bottle. Once inside, the new recruits immediately began chattering excitedly, greeting the 76 veteran mercenary cockroaches in a very enthusiastic and cheerful manner. In stark contrast, Lang 107's group, cockroaches from upscale downtown villas, acted extremely aloof and cold, clearly keeping their distance from these country bumpkins. After everyone else was inside, Lang 107 was the last to climb in. But because the number of cockroaches inside was too large and the bottle's capacity was limited, Lang 107's chubby body only managed to squeeze halfway through the opening before getting completely stuck, unable to move even a millimeter further. I looked at the scene with mixed emotions, half amused, half guilty, and said, "Sorry, guys, this is a bit unfair to you. Bear with it for a little while. Once we get out of here, I'll let you out immediately." In my heart, I silently told myself that once I got back to the hotel, the first thing I had to do was buy a super large bottle, several of them as backup. At this rate of recruiting troops without restraint, there was no way this tiny bottle could contain them. "It's okay, Sister Ha," Lang 107 hissed from the bottle opening, its voice obedient yet strangely satisfied. "It's a bit crowded, but it's nice and warm rubbing against each other." I laughed out loud at its ridiculous optimism, then quickly screwed the bottle cap shut and tucked it safely into my coat pocket. After that, I did not immediately bring the suspect sketch to hand over to Du Cam Kai. Instead, I carefully placed my notebook into a waterproof zip bag, then turned and walked toward the far corner of the open field, where I had arranged to meet the 3 gray scout mice earlier. In the secluded corner behind the fence wall, the 3 gray scout mice were already waiting for me. Standing beside them were 2 huge sewer rats, one large and one small, both soaked and covered in mud. As soon as they saw me approaching, the little gray mouse hurried forward, placing its tiny paws on its chest in a formal gesture of introduction. "Sister Ha, let me introduce them to you. This is King Rat and Little King Rat, the 2 brothers who govern this abandoned area." The 2 rat brothers cleared their throats, putting on an exaggerated air of authority. The larger one tilted his chin up, narrowed his beady eyes and looked me up and down with a knowing nod. "Greetings, fellow human. I hear from my subordinates that you have an urgent matter requiring our assistance?" The corner of my mouth twitched as I stared at their pretentious behavior. Fellow human? Where did they even pick up this gangster-style way of speaking? Before I could even correct them, a plump black shadow shot out of my coat pocket like lightning. It was Chip-Boo, the cousin of the gray scout mice, and the true boss of the sewer intelligence network. Without a word, Chip-Boo rushed forward and slapped the 2 rat kings across the face, sending mud flying everywhere. Its voice was sharp and commanding. "Whatever Sister Ha asks, answer immediately. You dare act like bosses in front of me? Want another beating until your whiskers fall off?" In truth, Chip-Boo was physically at least 1.5 times bigger than these 2 rural rats. Ever since following me in investigations, it had been well fed with premium beef and good food, growing plump and muscular. The 2 skinny, undernourished countryside rats had no chance of competing. After being slapped, the arrogance of the Rat King instantly vanished. He hurriedly tucked in his whiskers, pulled his tail down, and clasped his front paws together, bowing repeatedly. "Boss. Boss Ha, ask anything you want. We'll confess everything, no secrets. As long as you're happy, you can chop off our tails and roast them, we don't mind." I silently screamed inside my head. "Ugh, disgusting. Who would ever want to eat your filthy rat tails?" Still shivering in discomfort, Chip-Boo beside me planted its paws on its hips and barked. "Silence. Your tails are stinky and tasteless, even dogs would reject them. My sister Ha eats gourmet food every day. She wouldn't even look at your sewer-level junk." I didn't know whether to laugh or cry at Chip-Boo's arrogant tone. If I actually ate their tails, it would probably be the first thing it disowned me for. Humiliated by their big brother, the 2 rat kings immediately shut up and became obedient. I cleared my throat, forcing myself back into seriousness, then took out my sketchbook with the suspect's portrait drawn in pencil. Shielding it from the rain, I lowered the drawing toward the ground. "Look carefully. Does the person who buried the body here last night look exactly like this?" The Rat King's eyes widened instantly. He nodded furiously like a machine. Yes. It's him. Oh my God, that guy was terrifying, boss. In the middle of the night, he didn't sleep, he just dug and buried things in the wasteland. I even thought he was hiding treasure or disposing of his own kind." The little Rat King timidly poked his head out and added, "Boss, I swear I'm a good rat. I would never do something so cruel to my own kind." With this double confirmation from direct witnesses, my certainty grew even stronger. That cold-blooded killer, 100%, was the man in this sketch. I put the notebook back into my pocket and continued questioning. Besides burying the body, did he do anything unusual? Like muttering to himself or making phone calls? Where did he park his car on the wasteland, and which direction did he leave from, and at what time? As expected, rats had much higher IQ than cockroaches. Unlike the chaotic and fragmented reports of the cockroach swarm, the 2 rat kings answered my questions clearly and smoothly. They alternated in recounting the entire crime scene. The method matched previous cases almost perfectly. The killer buried the upper half of the body, then calmly returned to the car and casually retrieved the lower half, placing it upside down into a trash bin. The black car was always parked in a hidden corner of the wasteland. And the most terrifying part, he did not leave immediately after disposing of the body. He stayed inside the car, patiently waiting in the darkness. Only when dawn broke, when passers-by discovered the corpse and police sirens echoed in the distance, did he slowly start the engine and drive away. The way he operated felt like a deliberate provocation of the law itself, setting up a trap, enjoying the thrill of toying with investigators and escaping effortlessly right under their noses. I was still analyzing his psychological profile when the little rat king suddenly spoke up, interrupting my train of thought. Sister Ha, that guy didn't mutter to himself. He just stood there like a statue beside the trash bin, staring at the corpse for a very long time. Oh, he also kept pulling out some rectangular black object and clicking, taking photos. That thing flashed so brightly it nearly blinded my eyes. The Rat King immediately swung his claw and smacked his younger brother on the head. Lies. When he was taking photos, he was clearly sobbing, crying like a baby. I could hear it very clearly. After that, he took out another black object to make a call and talked to someone too. I froze for a second. A thought flashed through my mind. 2 mobile phones. Right. A killer with an extremely high IQ and extraordinary anti-investigation skills would never be stupid enough to store those perverse trophy photos, evidence that could directly convict him, on his daily use phone. He must have a backup phone. And that phone would never be carried with him all the time. So where would it be hidden? At the company? In a secret apartment? Or inside his own villa? A flash of insight struck me. This was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It seemed I would have to deploy my cockroach special agents again to infiltrate the killer's lair. Seeing the little Rat King clutching his head and muttering in dissatisfaction, I finally snapped back to reality. It wasn't talking if he was crying. That was just whining. Talking is like how you and I are arguing right now. The Rat King snorted angrily. If there's sound, it counts as talking. Before the 2 brothers could start biting each other again, I quickly broke up the fight by snapping off more pieces of butter cookie and tossing them over. All right, calm down. Be good. Anything else unusual you remember? The little Rat King hugged the cookie and shook his head while chewing. No, boss. That's everything we managed to dig up for you. So tasty. The Rat King narrowed his eyes, savoring the buttery flavor. Seeing that, I didn't press further and instead scattered another handful of cookie crumbs as a reward. Then I took the plastic bottle from my pocket and prepared to let the cockroach swarm back inside. But unexpectedly, 2 of the local cockroaches stubbornly clung to the bottle opening and refused to go in. After questioning them, I was shocked. It turned out those 2 little degenerates had sneaked glances at 2 female cockroaches in my mercenary unit and were using staying behind in the landfill as an excuse to prepare for mating. Hearing insects casually and bluntly discussing their bedroom affairs made my face burn with embarrassment. Honestly, even as a human, I sometimes felt more conservative and overthinking than these cockroaches. Fine. If you want to stay, then stay. I clicked my tongue and relented. But remember this, behave yourselves. Don't run around or damage anything. If you do, you'll get sprayed and wiped out. Don't blame me. The 2 cockroaches immediately nodded eagerly, their antennae raised proudly. They even got bold and started begging me to name them as a keepsake for their singlehood liberation. Looking at their shiny, wriggling bodies gave me a headache, so I casually pointed. The bigger one will be called Delang. The smaller one, Erlang. Delang and Erlang were overjoyed upon receiving their new names, trembling their antennae and wagging their spiky tails excitedly. Sister Ha, these names are amazing. They sound so mighty and heroic. While they were still basking in their own self-importance, little Lang 665, lying at the bottom of the bottle, suddenly whispered to Lang 107. TSK, they really think they've got it all figured out. In reality, Sister Ha is face-blind when it comes to cockroaches, she can't tell any of us apart. From now on, whatever name we introduce ourselves with, she'll just casually agree. But we're professional mercenary soldiers with education, we can't expose this and embarrass her. Big Lang and Little Lang nodded knowingly. Oh, right. Got it. Hey you two, have you forgotten I'm standing right here, and my brain can literally pick up all your signal frequencies? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but I was too lazy to expose them. Quickly, I sealed the bottle, packed the entire insect agent unit into my coat pocket safely, and stood up decisively to find Captain Du Cam Kai. When I returned, he was still standing silently in the rain, his eyes sweeping across the landfill area. He assumed I had stood there in silence for a long time and then left without a word because I had found no psychic clues. But he was wrong. This time, I didn't just find a breakthrough, I had even pulled out the face of that demon. Captain Du. I stepped forward, my voice firm. He turned around, his tired expression mixed with surprise as I handed him the pencil sketch. Are you saying this drawing is the face of the killer responsible for the case? I nodded firmly. He took the drawing, his expression immediately becoming extremely complex. He narrowed his eyes to inspect it closely. Although the rain had smudged a few pencil lines into faint dark streaks, the overall face of the man in the sketch remained strikingly clear, angular, vivid, almost alive. Do you know Thoi Trak Fu? Captain Du suddenly asked, his voice sharpening. At the familiar name, my memory immediately clicked into place. You mean the one Lam Fong investigated? One of the major real estate figures closely tied to Don Vai Jia? Not only that. Captain Du narrowed his eyes, his gaze probing deeply into me. In his mind, he was thinking, again, another hit. From sensing the crime scene, to narrowing it down to the three men named Thoi, and now this? I shook my head and answered honestly. I don't know him. I only briefly saw his file at the station. But deep down, I knew clearly that Thoi Trak Fu was the most suspicious one. From the age gap of 30 years to his status as a wealthy second-generation elite, only people of the same generation, arrogant young elites like Don Vai Jia, would speak to each other in that mocking, casual tone even when they potentially held each other's fatal secrets. If it were the two older men aged 47 and 56, Don Vai Jia would never dare speak so rudely. So, does this sketch match the file photo of Thoi Trak Fu? I pressed, my heart pounding. The case file Lam Fong gave me earlier had no portrait attached. Every line on this rain-soaked page was drawn purely from the cockroaches' testimony. It matches. This is Thoi Trak Fu's face. Captain Du let out a heavy breath. Shock was clearly written across his hardened face. This terrifying level of accuracy sparked an even stronger wave of suspicion in his mind. If I had never met him, never seen his photo, how could I possibly draw a near-perfect portrait in less than an hour at a crime scene? Captain Du looked deeply into my eyes, searching for any sign of hesitation or guilt, but found none. My gaze remained clear, steady, and unwavering. I've never met Thoi Trak Fu, nor have I seen his photo. This portrait. I saw it through my special ability. I stated clearly. No matter what happens, Thoi Trak Fu is the perpetrator. I can stake my life on it. Du Cam Kai fell into silence. His hand holding the sketch tightened slightly. Deep down, he fully understood that this was an enormous life-and-death gamble. If he bet correctly, he would personally capture the serial demon who had been a terrifying obsession for the entire police department for 6 years, finally bringing justice to the 7 innocent souls buried in the abyss. But if he was wrong, if he trusted my so-called psychic intuition and deployed all resources in the wrong direction, the police would lose the golden opportunity to track down the real culprit. By then, the true murderer would escape calmly and freely. The police would once again face a long year of relentless public criticism and psychological pressure. And even worse, more innocent victims would surely fall in the next rainy nights. Captain Du. I called out softly, my voice sincere to the point of being torn from my chest. Please, trust me just this once. The rain grew heavier. Thunder tore across the sky. The distance between us was only a handspan, yet the sound of the rain drowned my voice, making it thin and fragile as it brushed past his ears. But when Du Cam Kai looked up and met my eyes, he froze. In all his years as a homicide detective, he had never seen eyes so firm, so bright, and so full of conviction. He took a deep breath, then nodded decisively. All right, huh? I'm willing to take this gamble. I'll trust you one more time. Hearing those words, the heavy stone pressing on my heart finally lifted. A faint smile curled up my lips, blooming brightly in the cold rain. Thank you, Captain Do. Please stay tuned for the next part. Like and follow my channel to get story updates faster. Thank you all very much.